Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS DFS live stream for today, Tuesday, April 11th. First of all, I do apologize if we're lagging at all. It looks like it took a little bit for me to go live. So if we lag at any point in time, I do apologize for that first and foremost. But what I'll be doing in this video, in this live stream, going through a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out. Talking about my core picks for today, talking about a little bit of weather spots overall for baseball games. Doesn't look too bad at this point in time. And then we'll get over to some of my top stacks. Maybe we'll take a look at prize picks, see if anything does stand out. I haven't gotten a chance to look at that yet. But as always, I'll try to get some stuff over on my Twitter at Coach Craig Sports. So definitely be sure to follow me there as well. But without further ado, we're going to get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. At the pitcher position, we went with Julio Urias at $10,900. He got to 49 points yesterday, so he was a hit. He was the third overall pitcher on yesterday's slate, so one of the safer plays, that pitcher, so definitely don't have a problem with what we got out of him yesterday. At first base, we had Paul Goldschmidt at $4,200, got to 19.2, so he was a hit as well. He was the second overall first baseman on yesterday's slate, only missing out on that top spot by about 3 points. And then at third base, originally I had Anthony Rendon, $2,800. Had some decent history versus Patrick Corbin, but he was a late scratch yesterday. So we had limited options at that point in time. Brandon Drury had some decent history versus Patrick Corbin in the past. So I did post up on the community page to pivot over to Brandon Drury last night because we got the news probably about a half hour, 40 minutes before that game started. Brandon Drury only got 3 points, though, so he ended up being a push at $2,600. At shortstop, we had Corey Seager, $3,000. He had really good history in the past for Zach Greinke. He ended up with 34.4 points. He was a hit and the top overall shortstop on yesterday's slate, so obviously a very good play there. And then last but not least, we had Hunter Renfroe at $2,800. He got a home run again last night. He got 27.9 points. He was a hit in the fourth overall outfielder on yesterday's slate. So if you went with these 5 players alone, had a really good chance of cashing yesterday. If you had some other decent plays alongside them, probably was a pretty good day for you overall as well. Myself, just a little bit above doubling up. I get a couple of Brewers players in there that didn't do too much overall, but the rest of these guys really propelled that lineup in a really good spot overall. But with that being said, we're going to get off of the recap side, and we'll go over to the core picks, talking about weather just a little bit here. So at this point in time, doesn't really look like there is any dangerous weather spots in terms of postponements, delays, anything else like that. So should be a pretty good day overall for weather. Obviously, there's going to be some places where wind's blowing out a little bit more. If there's anything that does change throughout the day, definitely we'll list that down in the comments below as well. But with that being said, getting into the core picks for today, obviously we have one pitcher, 4 hitters if you're brand new to the channel. But at the pitcher position today, we're still paying up at the very top with Shohei Ohtani, one of the safer plays today overall. Obviously, we know the type of upside he can have on any given day. Going against the Washington Nationals, one of the weaker teams in all of baseball as well, $10,800. Hefty price tag, but definitely worth it. He's averaging, just over 50.5, or let me look at this too. We're going to pull up his recent games too. He didn't pitch against the Washington last year. Doesn't have a lot of history versus these hitters, but the 2 starts this year, both gone 6 innings. So we're getting that quality start out of him most likely. Had at least 8 strikeouts in both and at least 49 points. So there is a very good chance that he is one of the top pitchers once again today. If you want to play like a Jacob deGrom against Kansas City, don't mind that one as well, since he did show some pretty good promises last start. There are some interesting options out there today, but in terms of safety, Shohei Ohtani is going to be the top option in my personal opinion. Then at second base, we're going down to Marcus Semien. He has very good history in the past versus Jordan Lyles. He's $3,300 at this point in time. He is 8 for 16 with 1 home run versus Jordan Lyles in his career. So pretty solid history there. Obviously, Marcus Semien's one of those hitters that's a little bit streaky. It's a lot of times when he gets in that core pick that ends up being the 0 for 4 day, and then the next day is the real big day. But the history is really trending there. You got some of those 0 for 4 days in there. That's the kind of thing that you fear with him. But the upside there, as we see in some of these other days, looking pretty good overall. So if he can get on that right track, especially against Jordan Lyles, a guy that he's hit really well in the past, going to be a big day for him once again. Then down in the outfield, went back to Hunter Renfroe today. He's got a home run in 3 straight games. He's kind of hot at this point in time. Obviously, it's not the left-handed pitching matchup today, which is a matchup that he excels in. It's going against Josiah Gray of the Washington Nationals. He's only faced him twice in his career, but does not have a hit against him. But we're going with a little bit more recent history here. Josiah Gray did lead the league in home runs allowed from a pitcher last season too. So when you factor that in, plus kind of that tear that Renfroe's on, looks like a pretty solid play overall today. His price tag has not gone up from that $2,800 price point as well. So definitely going to look as appealing as he's going to be for quite some time. And then last but not least, we go down to Mookie Betts, a little bit cheaper than probably should be at this point in time as well at $3,800. He is going against Alex Wood for the San Francisco Giants today. He is 9 for 14 with 3 home runs versus Alex Wood in his career. So obviously some pretty impressive history there. And then even if you look at Mookie Betts, it's been a pretty good start to the season once again for him. So don't really have too many concerns here. Hitting 293, he's got the 2 home runs. He's got a hit in the last 4 games, a multi-hit game yesterday. He's only got 1 game this whole season, 2 games this whole season where he doesn't have a hit. So some pretty good upside, pretty good safety there as well. So $3,800, definitely not a bad price tag for him, but does offer that really good upside versus Alex Wood, a guy that he's hit really, really well in the past as well. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of core picks for today. Oh, excuse me. I forgot the last one. Typically, I don't like to do this, where I kind of double up and have to put a guy in the utility spot. But at this point in time, I really like playing Ketel Marte. He's only $2,500. This price tag has not gone up despite having 2 really good games the past 2 games. He's a guy that should be, most of the time, $2,800, $3,100, somewhere in that range. So he's a very good hitter. He's going against Corbin Burnes, who's kind of struggled to start the season. Last year, like his last kind of 8 starts or so, were not the greatest either. So we have Ketel Marte, who's hitting 2 for 5 versus him in his career. Cheap price tag, offers a little bit of upside there as well. If we see his last couple games, obviously has had that really good upside as well. Should be hitting towards the top of the lineup, if not first overall once again. And you see he's got a hit in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's got a 7-game hitting streak going at this point in time. So a little bit of safety there. He's got 2 games this year where he doesn't have a single hit, but we've seen the upside there in a big way the last couple games. If he starts running and starts stealing some bases again, could be a little bit extra upside again today. And, Arizona is one of those teams that does like to run, or in theory, they like to run. So definitely like him at that $2,500 price range. But if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $11,800 remaining, just under $3,000 per player. So definitely a lot of different possibilities of how you want to approach this slate. If you guys do have any specific questions for me today regarding MLB DFS, be sure to leave them in the live chat if you're listening live, down in the comments if you're watching on replay, or if it's after the live chat ends, and I'll be happy to answer them as quickly as possible. But with that being said, we're going to get over to kind of my cheat sheet as well, which my cheat sheet is up on Patreon, or my cheat sheet is up on Patreon. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on my YouTube page under the community tab as well. So just a free resource for you guys to use on the daily. If you're interested in more MLB DFS notes on any given slate, be sure to check out Patreon, patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports. Break down every single pitcher, whether I would consider them in play, a risky play, whether I'm avoiding them on this given slate, and then kind of some notable hitter versus pitcher matchups as well as some teams to stack. Sometimes I'll have more teams to stack than what fits in this cheat sheet, just because on the cheat sheet, I only want to put like 4 or 5 max on there. And there's some that kind of get in the territory of like, oh, maybe you'll stack them. Just kind of depends on how ownership plays and everything else like that. But in terms of the top stacks that I do have for today, we have the Texas Rangers going against Jordan Lyles. Usually when Jordan Lyles is pitching, I like stacking against him just in general. He's, a low-end starter at best. Guy that probably shouldn't be in a rotation at this point in time either way, but the Rangers hitters do have some pretty decent history versus him, most notably Marcus Semien, and then Robbie Grossman's actually another guy that has pretty good history versus him as well. You'll see him in that cheat sheet at $2,800. Got 2 home runs in 9 at-bats versus Jordan Lyles in his career, so some pretty good upside there. We have the Minnesota Twins, who have really good history versus Lance Lynn of the Chicago White Sox, and Lynn's kind of struggled his first couple starts. I believe he was a little bit sick in his last start as well. And then we have the Dodgers going against Alex Wood. A lot of the guys have pretty good history versus him, whether it's Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Max Muncy coming off a big game. But, you got the lefty on lefty matchup there, so that could be an interesting one as well. And then last but not least, we have the Atlanta Braves, who are going to against Luis Cessa of the Cincinnati Reds. There's not a lot of history there, but I tend to favor on the side of the Atlanta Braves lineup, which is a pretty strong lineup, going against Cessa, who's, a back-end rotation of the starter at best at this point in time. He's a guy that's been in the bullpen before. He's been around for a long time, so we kind of know what we're getting out of him on pretty much any given day as well. So like the upside of those 4 teams going against their respective matchups. Not like a day that you have to stack quite as heavy as probably some other days, but definitely something to consider moving forward as well. But with that being said, that's really mainly what I have in terms of core picks for today, in terms of top stacks, in terms of talking about the weather, the recap of yesterday's picks and everything else like that. I'm going to throw up promo code for prize picks here. I'm going to see if I can pull up prize picks real quick just to see if there's anything that really stands out. Um, if anybody does have any specific questions related to like prize picks, you can always feel free to throw it in the comments. You can feel free to message me on Twitter as well at Coach Craig Sport, and we can talk a little bit more about that as well. So let me get logged in over here. And then we'll take a look real quick since I do have a little bit of time today at this point in time as well. So I'm going to bring up prize picks real quick. So we're going to stop sharing this screen. We'll go over to prize picks and we're just going to look get some base tops for today. So obviously, if you are brand new to Prize Picks, it's a parlay site. It's one that you can use flex plays or a power play. A power play is like your traditional parlay where you have to get every single piece of your parlay correct to make a profit. But with the flex play, if say you bet three different things, if you get two of them right, you still make a little bit of profit. If you get three of them right, you make a little bit more profit. So you get the flexibility to get more things wrong. Obviously, you can go up to 6 different lines in your flex plays as well. If you get 5 out of 6 right, you're still making a pretty good profit. If you get 4 out of 5 right, if you're playing a 5 leg, you get profit. If you get 3 out of 4, so on and so forth. But just something to consider as well. And like I said, if you first sign up over at Prize Picks, use this code, get 100% first match deposit up to $100. Helps you out just a little bit, helps me out a little bit as well. And then obviously with Prize Picks, you can bet on different things, whether it's MLB. If you want to get into some NBA playoff action, you can pair those together. If you want to get into some NHL, you can pair it together. If you want to get into PGA, XFL, USFL, tennis, League of Legends, cricket, whatever you want. You see all this stuff that's up on the top. So definitely a lot of different options there. Typically for me, when I am first looking at Prize Picks from an MLB perspective, I first off start with total bases. This is not the one that everybody plays. Everybody plays baseball a little bit differently, but the biggest ones for me are always total bases and strikeouts. So that's where we can see if we can get an advantage there. So when I'm looking at total bases, I've done a lot of research on the slate just in general. So I like looking for guys that I know have pretty good history versus the pitcher they are facing, and then we kind of look into that recent history, kind of like I do with my core picks just in general. I personally am kind of skipping down to what is the main slate just in because that's the slate that I have researched the most. So there might be earlier games in the day that I'm not looking at quite as much. But when we're looking at price pick perspective, like Bo Bichette's on pretty good streak here. He's going against Matt Manning. There's not a lot of history there. So if you wanted to do like total bases over, you could do it. Obviously, you look at it, he's hit 3 out of the last 5 days. Obviously, that is not just the only way that you can look at things. Trent Grisham's up here. He's a guy that's been hitting pretty well. Lefty on lefty matchups, a little bit tougher though, but more times than not, he's gotten that one total base on the season. So that is one that we could consider. Jake Berger is righty on righty, so probably not looking at him today. Just trying to look at ones that do stand out to me personally. I know a lot of people have been liking this Dansby Swanson over 1.5 more times than not. I'm personally not a big fan on that. Typically, I like looking at these guys that got 0.5. So Hunter Dozier is one that's here. It's a tough matchup against Jacob deGrom. He's done it the last 3 games. He's 2 out of 3. 2 for 3 versus Jacob deGrom in his career. So if you wanted to look at that, that would be one that you could consider. Marcus Semien would definitely be one that I'm considering. Obviously, we talked about the history versus Jordan Lyles, 8 for 16, 1 home run versus him, 1.5 total bases there. So you just need him to get a double or more. If he hits that home run, obviously he clears it real quick. If he gets 2 hits, obviously he clears it as well. So that is one that I would definitely consider. If there's like a 1.5 hits plus RBIs plus runs, you could probably do something like that too on Marcus Semien. As we move down a little bit more here, Robbie Grossman, that's another one. We got 0.5 on him. Obviously, he's 3 for 9 with 2 home runs versus Jordan Lyles in his career. Not the greatest start to the season, but if you want to get on Robbie Grossman, you could do that as well. Obviously, with prize picks, you need to pick players from at least 2 different teams. So if you do Marcus Semien, Robbie Grossman, you have to throw a third person in there that is from a team that is not the Texas Rangers as well. But those would be kind of the ones that I'm looking at least early on today. If we get one for like Mookie Betts, total bases like over 1.5, we could look at that. Let's look at Marcus Semien just to see what all his props are at this point in time. So we have 0.5 runs, 1.5 total bases, and hitter score of 7.5. I'd probably just do the total bases because that's the easiest one for me, in my opinion. But if you want to do fantasy score, if you want to do runs, you could probably do that as well. Runs would be kind of the least likely one that I would personally do, just because unless you're hitting a home run, you have to get on base and have to count on somebody else driving you in to score that run. So mainly be looking at total bases. If you want to do the fantasy score, you can definitely do the fantasy score as well. As we move along, I will say the one thing that Price Picks had last year for MLB that they don't have this year was pitches, like number of pitches that pitchers were going to throw in any given start, and taking the over and under on that. And that was something that I found to be pretty profitable most of the time if you could kind of figure out trends, especially with pitchers. Maybe they'll add it as the season moves along. I know they've been doing it for the MLB Live, so they'll how many pitches is this pitcher going to throw in this given inning, or like over these given 2 innings and stuff like that. So that is another way that could be pretty profitable just in general for MLB, is playing some of the live stuff, whether it's strikeouts, hits allowed, pitches per inning, stuff like that. But there's a little bit of research that does go into that as well. I found that some of these ones too, where I'm not using Garrett Cole and Jacob DeGrom, but that's not a bad prop total there at 16.5 too. Some of these ones that are taking two pitchers and putting them together for a strikeout gives you a little less variance as just betting on one pitcher. So that's something that I've played a little bit so far this season as well. So that one with Garrett Cole and Jacob DeGrom's not terrible at 16.5, because even if you think that Jacob DeGrom had 11 strikeouts in his last start, and Garrett Cole has some pretty good strikeout as well, they're going against Cleveland and Kansas City. So there is some strikeouts to be had there. And then even if you look at I'm trying to find the Grom's individual line. Sometimes if you're betting those, though, just make sure that, say, like Garrett Cole's 7 and it's 16.5 for the two of them. Sometimes you'll get better value on the guys coming together, and sometimes you'll get better value on them separately. So just pay attention to that. If you guys have any specific questions about that, definitely be sure to ask, and I can definitely help you as well. The Shohei Ohtani one plus Shane McClanahan looks pretty good at 13.5 strikeouts. Obviously, Ohtani's gotten at least 8 in both his matchups so far this year going against Washington. Should be a pretty good matchup for him, so that would be another one to consider. Pretty good. Honestly, some pretty good pairings today just for those ones. If you're looking a little bit more, Garrett Willock's a little interesting, but I think this is his first start back off the IL as well. So definitely consider that. But um, let's see what else we got here. If anything else does really, really stand out, Alex Manoah at 6.5. Like, he's not a big strikeout pitcher. This one could easily go under, but going against Detroit, there's the opposite to go the opposite way as well. Ryan Weathers threw 90 pitches his first start, but he only had 2 strikeouts. So 3 is like a fair line probably at this point in time. There's a reasonable chance Kyle Wright goes under since he's had that shoulder injury. His velocity's kind of been down. We're not sure how many pitches that he's going to throw in this start just in general. But, going against Cincinnati, it's a decent matchup for that too as well. So you kind of get a little bit give and take on both sides. Pablo Lopez at 6. Don't mind the over there. Jacob DeGrom. See, DeGrom at 9.5, and then Garrett Cole was at 7. So 16.5 for the combined is essentially the same that you're betting on both guys, but you get a little bit of flexibility to maybe DeGrom gets 11 and maybe Garrett Cole only gets 6, and then you still hit the over. So that's just kind of the way that I like to play it personally. If you want to do like a Shohei Ohtani and Jacob DeGrom together, it's obviously there as well. Is there anybody else that really stands out? Kyle Freeland has not been striking out a lot of guys so far this season, and I don't think he's got 5 the last start, but the one before that was 1. This game is at Coors Field. St. Louis doesn't strike out like a super large amount, so that could be one to consider as well. Mainly I'd be looking at some of these Ohtani ones with another pitcher, though. Maybe we pair it with some of those Texas Rangers hitters that I did mention as well, but that's kind of at least where I'm initially looking at in terms of Prize Picks. If you guys have any more questions, if anything else does stand out throughout the day for Prize Picks, we'll try to post it up on Twitter at Coach Craig Sports. So definitely be sure that you're following me over there. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have in terms of the MLB DFS for today, talking a little bit of Prize Picks that I kind of squeeze in there as well. Typically, I like to have that kind of planned out a little bit ahead of time. So bear with me that kind of going through. There might have been a little bit of dead space there as well, but hopefully you guys found some of the information in this video useful. If you guys have any other additional questions, feel free to leave it down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I'll also try to get as many starting lineups as I can get out today. Obviously, yesterday was a little bit more hectic, so I wasn't able to get much out in terms of that, but did have the update for Rendon being scratch slate. Do have a baseball game that I'm coaching later today, so we'll try to get an updated core out if there is any changes to be had prior to that game starting as well. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. And if you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build a community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS going on. We have XFL DFS going on for 2 more weeks for the regular season. USFL DFS is starting up this week. So tomorrow I'll be doing a USFL DFS kind of preview, talking team by team, everything else like that. And then Thursday, I'll be doing a recap plus picks for XFL. And then Friday, I'll be doing the USFL picks as well. So definitely be sure to check out that content if that's something you're into as well. Obviously, those are only up on DraftKings as opposed to MLB that I do on FanDuel. If you have any questions related to MLB on DraftKings, feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll help you out as best that I can. Primarily play on FanDuel myself personally. DraftKings is just a little bit different format with 2 pitchers, a little bit different scoring and everything else like that, as opposed to FanDuel where there's 1 pitcher, a little bit different scoring as well. And then with that being said, if you're a brand new subscriber, have yet to do so, also be sure to have that notification bell turned on so you never miss a beat when I go live for any of these live streams or post up a pre-recorded video as well. With that being said, got a couple other NFL draft With that being said, I got a couple NFL draft prospect interviews up on the channel. So if that's something you're interested in as well, be sure to check that out. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video, for today's live stream. Once again, do truly appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to watch this, whether you're listening live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. And I hope that each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.